Oh, that Jimmy and Johnny, huh? Can you imagine that? They're like walking with Jesus, having meals with him, listening to everything that he's talking about loving your neighbor and serving and giving and doing for others. And yet they're sitting there and they ask him, can we sit at your right hand and your left hand? And you wonder, even when the thing there were about the disciples, where the other 10 were indignant, like, were they indignant of like, come on, like, what's wrong with you? What do you mean, like, why do you want to sit at the right hand and the left hand? No, that's not what we're all about. Or were they going, I was planning on sitting on your right hand and left hand. What are you doing taking my spot? So it's interesting, right? When you think of such, it's almost, now we can almost identify, is there a little Jimmy and Johnny inside of us? You know, when you think of like this sense of human being. So this human, right, there's this part of all of us that we can almost identify. You can almost sit, isn't that kind of funny when you think about it? So if they actually believe the sense of like, Jesus is going to come into his glory, life after death, eternal life, they're going to be in heaven, and somehow they have that concept of the throne and kingdoms and things like that. So they're actually picturing themselves, okay, so we're going to be in heaven, and Jesus is on this throne, and we're going to be sitting on his left and his right, kind of like, yeah. Like this is this imagery that they have. And so what they're expressing is their humanness. Their humanness, the desire inside every human being that I want to be more. If I'm recognized, then I'm important. If I'm loved, then I'm lovable. If we do the thing that like I want to do, I'm going to tell you how to get to Belmar or whatever, and we're going to use my way, then I'm smart. I'm the intelligent one. Everybody's going to go do things the way where I want it to go. And when we do that, it's a sense of this desire to be more. And underneath that, the biggest fear that we have is being diminished, is being less than. And so our ego is constantly seeking, that sense of seek but do not find. I can get no satisfaction. When you think of the things of this world, the things of form is human, and then you have the formless, which is being. Now, if you think of like everything on a level of form, I saw a picture of my dad. I was like cleaning out, it's like his mother and my father is like, I don't know, 4 months old or something like that. My father was born in 1927, and he passed away a while ago. But you like here's this little guy, you know what I mean? And he went through his whole life, and he had his moment of like vigor and success and blah, blah, blah. And then as time went on, he slowly, started losing it a bit, what's that called when you fill up with water?
Edema.
Edema? No, but it's something with your heart where you
Congestive heart failure.
Congestive heart failure. He was going in the hospital all the time. So his body was failing, right? So when you look at the level of form, it's temporary. It's going to diminish. Like our bodies, so many things are ultimately going to slowly crumble. And so while it's great to, take care of our bodies and eat right and do all those things, but the bottom line is at the end of the day, we have to accept that is going to diminish. And what happens is if we identify, and again, the word to identify is to make the same as. If I identify who I am with the things of form, I'm going to be in trouble because they're all going to eventually crumble. Who am I at the end of the day if I'm totally attached to all of those things? The world of form and being human. And you could see this in the gospel passage where they want to sit at the right hand and the left hand to become more. to have the status, to have some title, to have some name, to have things go our way. All of those things are formed. Now again, we're human beings. And so obviously being human and some of those things are a part of who we are. But we've got to ask ourselves this morning, do we have a balance? Do we have a balance between the form and the formless? Between the ego and the things that we want to achieve and acquire, which are fine, versus understanding that's not who we are. And you could see form takes place in a lot of other areas as well. I think we see this too, like even today, and if I could touch on for 1 second, and I'm not saying something, I'm not saying something political, but when you look at there's the Democrats think that the Republicans are all racists, and the Republicans think that the Democrats are going to create a socialistic society in America. And so they have this judgment against each other, which ultimately is a mind-developed concept that probably comes from a history of how people grew up and how they view things and things that they've experienced. And so what happens is that they're so identified with their point of view that it becomes argumentative. It can even become worse than argumentative. And but it's this identification with a point of view. I can think even back in '88, being a priest, where if you had a Catholic was marrying a Lutheran or a different religion, again there was this ego thing of like my mother, the Catholics were the Yankees, and the Presbyterians and the Lutherans were the Blue Claws, So there was this sense of we'll tolerate them, but obviously we're better, you know what I mean? So there's always that sense of wherever we're coming from, when somebody is coming from a place that's different than we are, they think differently, they believe differently, the ego has a tendency to say, you're wrong, or you're not as good as, I'm right. And we walk around, and when we have all that, this is all part of being human. And yet what Christ is calling us to is there is a deeper dimension inside of each one of us that goes beyond all of that. So what I thought we could do is we take a little journey, okay? So I want you to close your eyes, and you're going to listen to this. It's like a frequency thing. And I would like you to close your eyes and imagine that you've left your body. Okay, you've died, you've left your body. And you are floating off, and you're in space, whatever your concept of space, like a sort of the dark space or whatever, and you're floating. Now again, you have no body. The only thing there is your consciousness. All you are an awareness floating through space. And your body's not there, your home, all the things that you owned. I would imagine there's a sense of the people that you know and love that are still in their body. You have a sense of them. But so you're floating towards, and there's this light that you're going toward. Okay, so let's close our eyes. Now, as you're floating and you're seeing this light, and you're drawn to that light, and there's a warmth, and you're floating, drifting toward that light, and you're noticing that there is this overwhelming sense of peace and well-being. And you have a sense of looking back at your life on planet Earth with your ideologies and your beliefs and your attitudes, the things that you did for a living, your possessions, your bank accounts. That's all gone. It's all means nothing to you. Nothing. And as you're moving toward this light, you start to have this sense of feeling completely loved, overwhelming feeling of being loved and accepted, and not because I am this or I am that, but just that you are. There is no more or less. There's just, you're this being. And as you're moving toward this light, there's a sense of feeling you're going back home. You're going back to the very source from which you came from. And as you're moving toward that, you have this overwhelming sense of belonging, that what you're moving toward, you're also a part of. And what you're moving toward, that's a part of you. And you might, as you move closer to this light, have this sense of somebody that you know and love that have left their body, that you're familiar with, that they come out and greet you and welcome you. And there's others there as well. And you're having this sense of, I've always been a part of this. This light and this energy and this warmth and this love. It's always been there. And you realize, I never had to worry about being more. And I never had to fear being less. That who I am is a being, an eternal being of awareness. And that light that I'm moving toward, that light is in me, and I am in that. You are in that. It's like that feeling of slipping into a hot tub. Totally, completely loved and accepted. There's no fear, there's no anxiety, there's just this complete sense of well-being. Now, as you get there, something is communicated to you that we wanted you to experience this, to know that you're loved, that you're accepted and embraced, and that you're an eternal being. But there was a little bit of a glitch. You're not supposed to be here just yet. And so it's communicated to you that it's all good. This is where you're going, but you need to go back, because you're going back because you want to then experience this and utilize this in your life, this awareness. So now you go back to your body. And you wake up and you open up your eyes and you're in church at Good Shepherd. It's 9:30 in the morning. So welcome back. You'd rather stay. And you know, we had this wedding yesterday. It was really one of those cool weddings, right? There was like this kind of nice that this church is small, so the place was pretty much crowded, packed, like 70 people. And you could see people were crying, this couple, how they found each other and they were together. And even the people there, where you could just feel they were really with. Everybody there was the people, they wanted to be at this wedding, they wanted to participate and be here and be present. And so we were talking about like the love that they have with each other, kind of like sometimes there's like a sacred contract. People who are meant to be together, somehow, some way, they're gonna come together, like Debbie and Greg, and Kathleen and George, and all of you who have partners. But I mean, I was like mentioning that, like you could just tell that the love that was there, and commenting on the love, there was the senses of a human being that this is what life is really all about. It's the sense of loving each other and helping each other to grow in our ability to love. And what I noticed about this couple, one of the most powerful byproducts of this love is the sense that I can really be myself with you. I can allow myself to just totally be who I am. And I really believe that that's the biggest message that Christ gives to us, is that he gives his life away in the most powerful way you could possibly understand. And it's a way of saying, what more could I do for you to communicate to you that not only do I love you and that you're loved, but the most powerful thing for you to do is to be completely yourself. To just be yourself. Being formless. This is who we are. And we're just living in this form. Fine to use it, develop it, whatever, but we can never mistake and never misidentify that who we really are is formless, is eternal consciousness. Jesus says, I could say this every time I give a homily, the kingdom of heaven is within you. It's all there. And when you seek that, and you go within, listen to what he says. Everything is granted unto you. When you don't need to be more, when you don't fear being less, when you can come from within and feel whole and be yourself, there seems to be this spiritual, mystical intelligence that envelops you, that enables you to solve and deal with whatever problems that you have. But it comes from within you. Human being. Jesus says to us this morning, focus and know that primarily